Rei is a lonely loser who buys a VR game and logs into it, where he is immediately dropped into the cheap copy of Sword Art Online. He finds himself in a bustling city filled with people, and as he is walking in the city, he is hit by a girl who thinks she is faster than Usain Bolt. Rei's pathetic little ass is on the ground barely alive because of his low level. He threatens to sue her for attacking him, so she immediately heals him back up. After that, the girl introduces herself as Lily, and casually tosses in a quest to save her dumb little sister who got captured. She also gives him her address so he can come to her place whenever he wants. What an absolute thought. As soon as he gets her address, a level 5 quest gets prompted, which surprises him as it meant that she was an NPC who had more personality than all of my ex-girlfriends combined. After that, he decides to go and find his older brother Shuu, who has been playing this game for some time and might know how to deal with this. Yes, his brother is named after something you wear on your feet. After looking for a while, he discovers him dressed as a bear, handing out candy to kids. Shuu explains to him that this game is extremely realistic and that everything you do has consequences. He also explains that if you die in the game, you are given a 20-hour ban, which is equal to 3 days in the game. He also explains that NPCs in this game are like real people, and if they die in this game, they are just dead forever. Hearing this, our incel brain MC decides to help Lily find her dumb lost sister, and asks Shuu for assistance, and he agrees as he has nothing better to do anyways. They both head out to the location, which is supposed to be an abandoned forest that contains a lot of monster bugs, and after reaching the gate, Shuu hands Rei some protection, but Rei tells him that he always goes in raw. They run inside and spot Lily fighting against a horde of monsters alone while trying to protect her sister. Shuu runs in like your everyday American and pulls out a fucking minigun from his ass and starts blasting it as if he was in a school. Suddenly, 3 giant centipedes come out of the ground and attack him. When the dust settles, we see that there is no sign of Shuu, just a giant hole in its place, which is bigger than the one in my heart after my dad left me. Before Rei could react, one of the centipedes tries to attack him, but Lily, the girl boss, comes to his defense. She tells him to take his sister and run away. So he quickly grabs the dumb girl and starts running towards the gate. But suddenly he realizes that one of the centipedes is following him underground. He dodges out of the way just as it attacks him, and tells her to run towards the gate while he decides to take the giant bug on his own. But Rei is no match against the monster, as he is hit 3 times, and each time he has to use his health potion to get his health back, while the centipede loses interest in him and decides to pursue the girl like any other imbecile. Rei runs after it, but it's too late. As the centipede hits the girl, yeeting her up in the air, Rei catches her before she can take any more damage, saving her from dying. However, he has no potions left, and both he and the girl are on the verge of being deleted. He holds his hand up and begs for the embryo to help him. Suddenly, a girl pops out of the gemstone, introducing herself as Nemesis, pulling up a shield to block the attack. She transforms into a big black sword, which Rei has experience handling, and tells him to attack the monster right as it attacks him. The centipede comes in for the final killing blow, but Rei swings his sword, killing the monster immediately. After the danger has passed, Lily then heals them both, and Shuu survives thanks to one of his skills, which allows him to dig through the ground like a Chinese sweatshop worker trying to escape the concentration camp. Lily thanks him and walks back into town with her sister. At dinner, Shuu tells Rei that he looks like a virgin, so the next day, she takes him to one of the guild shops and gets him some shiny new gear to try and fix his ugly ass, and he chooses the knight class for himself. Shuu informs him that to become an actual knight, he needs a recommendation from another knight, so Rei quickly visits Mommy Milkers, and sure enough, she gives him a recommendation which makes him eligible to become a knight. Shuu and Rei part ways from there, and Rei, alongside Nemesis, goes into the hunting grounds to kill some monsters and gain more levels. While killing some goblins, he notices Dumb and Dumber fighting against a bunch of goblins, but having some trouble. He decides to heal them from a distance, which helps give them an edge, and they kill the goblins. They thank Rei and introduce themselves as Rook, who is also a new player, and Baby, his embryo who has 2 incredibly soft and bouncy personalities. They go together to a cafe to have some food and part ways later, promising to join a party together one day. Later in the evening, Rei goes to a forest to grind more levels, but suddenly, he is hit by something and loses some health points. He quickly turns around and spots another monster coming towards him, which he destroys. He realizes that this is not a monster, this is someone's embryo. He quickly starts running away from the area like a total bitch as he hears people screaming, which can only mean that one of the players is killing other players. But before he could escape, he gets killed by an unknown player and wakes up in his world. He is given a 24-hour ban, and when he returns to the game, he finds a very sad nemesis, who believes it is her fault that he died. He raises her spirits, and they go into a dungeon to kill some monsters. While inside the dungeons, he kills multiple zombie monsters. And while descending a staircase, he is attacked by someone. His heart starts racing, but he quickly blocks the attack, and it turns out that the attack came from another player. The player apologizes for attacking him, as he thought Ray was a monster with that ugly mug for a face of his, and then introduces himself as Figaro. Ray calms down and quickly remembers seeing him at the top of the leaderboards, as Figaro apologizes to them once again and leaves as he wants to hunt some better-looking monsters. Ray wonders whether he could ever be as strong as him, and decides to grind some more levels before returning back to his room for some rest. The next day, Ray meets up with Rook again during breakfast, and he informs him that all of the player killers have apparently died in one night. This seems to be very odd, and they try to think of what could have happened when suddenly, a very weirdly dressed woman who looks like a botched fashion show sits down on her table, introducing herself as Marie. She claims to be a reporter and tells them that she can show them what happened for some money. She takes out a crystal ball and informs them that 4 of the superior players of this kingdom were called to kill all 4 of the player-killing gangs. She shows them some clips of the superiors killing the entire gang by themselves. One of the superiors turns out to be Figaro, who easily kills an entire gang, and similar to him, the other 2 superiors also deal with the gang very easily, but the superior who was tasked with killing the gang in the north has no identity. North was the area where Ray was killed a few days ago, so he is interested to see what happened. He only sees that fire rained upon the entire forest, and it was burnt to crisps. But according to Marie, the leader of that gang is a superior killer, and he was the only one who escaped. Ray goes to inspect the forest and is shocked to see the extent to which it was burned. While walking around in the area, Nemesis ends up finding platform 9 3/4 faster than Harry Potter did, and enters inside followed by Ray. They find a pretty furry pussy over there and start talking to her about the destruction caused here. Later in the evening, Rook and Ray meet up once again and decide to pursue a quest together as a party. They are also joined by Marie, who tells them that she is supposed to go in that direction and would like to accompany them, to which Rook and Ray both agree, thinking they would get some action. They decide to turn in for the night and meet tomorrow morning to set out for the journey. The next day, they all meet up and take a wagon that is being pulled by my ex-girlfriend. I mean a fat-ass rhino which is tamed by Rook, as he has learned the skills of a beast tamer. On the way, they spot a group of players surrounded by some very handsome goblins. Ray and Rook decide to help them and kill all the goblins together. The leader of the caravan walks towards him to express his gratitude, but suddenly a large ogre drops from the sky and crushes him. Marie tells Ray and has a huge bounty on his head. Ray realizes that he is completely outmatched, but he grits his teeth and decides to fight against him anyway to make America great again. The ogre punches him, but he is able to block the attack and runs towards it to deal an attack of his own. But the ogre lets out a fart nastier than one of mine, which reduces Ray's senses, and his health starts declining. Rook was saved from the horrible smell because Babes grabbed him and flew in the air, avoiding the deadly gas. Ray is unable to move, and the ogre tries to flatten him into a pancake, but the rhino runs towards the ogre and shoves his horny horns right up the ogre's ass. The ogre throws the rhino away, injuring it, before running towards Ray to attack him again. It punches Ray, but he responds with his own sword slash, cutting off his right hand, which enrages the ogre as he was planning on using it that night. Ray thinks that he can never defeat the ogre if he is constantly so weak. But suddenly, Marie throws a potion at his face, which removes the effect of the poison for 180 seconds. He decides to use one of his skills, in which he is able to deal a lot of damage. So he stands up and charges at the ogre, slashing his legs but being kicked back. He keeps attacking him and keeps getting hit again and again, healing himself in between. Suddenly, he is attacked by this huge fucking bird, which is owned by the ogre. Rook decides to distract the bird so that Ray can handle the ogre, as he gets hit a couple more times before Nemesis informs him that his attack is ready. He jumps in the air, with his sword drawn, and attacks the ogre. But at the last moment, it uses its flame attack. Ray is able to block the flames and delivers his special attack, removing the ogre's head completely. To his surprise, the ogre is still alive, and he punches Ray before he can react. And he realizes that the ogre's heart must be in his stomach, and that's why he is so fat and still alive. Ray doesn't have any more health points to take any more damage, and alongside that, the buff from the potion has worn off. Suddenly, Nemesis gets upgraded into a level 2 embryo, changing shape to a fancy spear after being used by Ray. This also gives Ray resistance to poison and self-healing and bragging rights. The ogre rips ass again, but Ray runs through it and stabs its big fat belly. He is able to deal damage, but the ogre quickly regenerates that area again. He realizes that he needs to use his special skill to take him down, so he charges at the ogre, slashing him as many times as he can while taking damage. When he has accumulated enough power, he rushes at the ogre and delivers his final blow, killing it and claiming a special bracer. Later that day, they go to the guild of the new town and receive the bounty for killing the ogre, which they divide amongst themselves. Rook was also able to tame the giant bird, so they now have another beast in their arsenal. Later in the evening, he goes to the hunting grounds and tests his new bracers, where he ends up meeting a strange person wearing a penguin costume, who knows his name and reaches into his crotch, grabbing a potion to cure his ugliness. The potion, however, makes him have dog ears, but before he could say anything, the penguin runs away. The next day, Ray goes over to a shop to finally get some new gear thanks to the money he earned. He and Nemesis search around the entire shop, and are finally able to find a red coat for him, which makes him look like a total degenerate furry. Fortunately, Rook also arrives at the shop right now, and starts looking around for some bling. They both greet each other, and start shopping together like happily married women. After making some small talk, they walk over to a vending machine that gives you a big black ball. Ray is used to handling balls, so he buys a bunch of them, but doesn't win anything. Rook gets only one rainbow ball, which fits his personality very well, and ends up getting a very rare pair of sissy mittens that will only help him stay a virgin forever. Ray gets one final ball for his satisfaction, and bids Rook goodbye. Before walking out of the store with Nemesis, he goes to a field with Nemesis, still sad about his balls, but decides to satisfy himself with the last one. To his surprise, the ball ends up being lucky for him, as it contained a silver mechanized horse inside of it, which is a very rare item. He is really happy, and names his horse Silver. What a creative fucking name. He then decides to go in for a test ride, but even the horse thinks Ray is too ugly and simply yeets him off before running away. He decides to gain the riding skill later down the line, and goes back inside the town, and while walking in dingy alleys and talking to Nemesis, he ends up overhearing a bunch of noises. He walks over to a corner and checks where the sounds are coming from. He is shocked to spot a poor girl surrounded by a bunch of ugly fat men who seem to be harassing her for money. She keeps crying out to them, telling them to take the money and return her brother, but the men are in no mood to listen. Nemesis tells Ray that she is an NPC just like him, and he should not think so much about her, but Ray wants to be a knight in shining armor, who can't see a girl in trouble and leave her alone. He tells Nemesis that he is going to intervene, and that she should get ready. Nemesis lets out a sigh, and tells him that this is the reason he gets his ass kicked so often. He turns around the corner, but before he can shout at them to stop, he hears a shout from the opposite direction, telling the goons to stop. He looks in the direction, and spots a young trap, about his age, dressed in an elegant white dress. He tells them that no one will touch a maiden while he is around. The goons look at him, but don't look impressed, as all they see is a rich brat trying to play the hero. The boy looks at them, and for some reason, throws a rose at one of the guys, thinking that he can riz them up. But the guy finds his behavior to be more sus than a TikTok femboy. He tells them that his level is more than 100, which shocks everyone because that is a very high level. Ray decides to stand back, as he is sure a person who is level 100 can easily deal with a bunch of NPC hooligans. The pretty boy isn't shutting up, as he keeps talking, but the goons have had enough, and start running towards him. The boy gets shocked at this, and tells them to stop, as he isn't ready yet, but the goons attack him, and within minutes, they bully the fuck out of this guy, knocking him to the ground. They then turn their heads towards Ray, and one of them rushes at him and tries to punch him, but Ray is not useless like the trap, and simply counter-punches Fatty, throwing him to the ground. He seems confused at this sudden boost in power, but then Nemesis reminds him that he is using the bracer, which increases his strength by 100 times. He then turns towards the rest of the goons and says, "Come at me, bro," but they are all so scared that they run away as fast as possible. He quickly walks up to the beaten up boy and heals him up. The boy thanks him and introduces himself as Hugo the Pretty Trap. Ray asks him why he got beat up so easily, and if he is actually level 100. Hugo replies that he wasn't ready, and that his abilities take some time to get charged up. Suddenly, a young girl walks up from behind them while carrying the rest of the goons, beaten to a pulp. Ray looks surprised to see a girl like her beating up all these guys alone, and asks about her. Hugo reveals that she is his embryo named Psycho. Nemesis and Psycho walk towards each other, and at first don't seem to like each other, as Psycho calls her flatter than the earth. Suddenly, the girl who is being harassed runs up to them crying and asks them to save her. Hugo likes being the knight, and he tells her some cliché bullcrap about how it's his job to save a hottie in distress like her. But Ray is not such a simp and cuts straight to the chase. He asks her what happened, and she reveals that lately a gang has been operating in the hills that captures boys and girls from the village, conducts experiments on them, and eats them afterwards. Rei is horrified at this, as she tells him that they have captured her brother as well, and she wants him back at any cost, and is ready to do anything for him. After hearing her story, Rei tells her not to worry about anything, as he will make sure to get her brother back to her alive and well at any cost. She looks at him and starts crying, thanking him for his generosity, while Hugo looks at Rei and tells him that he is coming as well and will do anything to aid him and get the innocent people back. Rei thanks him, and they both head outside of the town. Hugo takes them into the forest where Logan Paul got cancelled, and after walking for a while, he throws a white mechanical sheet and a bunch of holographic buttons start floating around. Rei is super confused as his monkey brain can't comprehend what technology is, but Hugo quickly types in his password, and a vault opens and a giant mecha erupts from it. Rei has never seen anything like this in this game before, and he asks him about it. Hugo reveals that he has the very rare skill of being a mecha user, so he is able to control his mecha easily. He reveals that this mecha is the reason he is at such a high level, as it is basically a hack. However, if you take away his mecha, his other stats are only mediocre, and that is why he got beaten up so easily by the goons. Rei asks him whether he knows where the hideout of this gang is, and he replies that when Psycho captured the other goons, she was able to beat the information out of one of them. According to her, they are hiding in the mountains and using an abandoned castle as the base of their operation. Hugo gets inside of the mecha, and they move through the jungles towards their hideout. They scout for a bit when a bunch of carts filled with boys and girls arrives towards the castle. Psycho uses her super hearing ability to hear what they were saying, and overhears that they are talking about deleting the girl's brother to take revenge. Rei tells them that they have to bum rush them before they have the chance to hurt the boy, but Hugo stops him and tells him to use his pea-sized brain for once and make a plan. He shows Rei that the entire castle is lined with men, and if they go in right now they will face a lot of resistance. So his 500-ick plan is that he will create a distraction, and Rei should use that time to quickly enter the dungeons. Rei agrees with the plan and thanks him for being the sacrificial goat. Hugo tells him to take care before he noob tubes one of the goddamned horses for no reason. All of the men immediately rush towards him to get some trap ass, and since they don't know about Rei, almost all of the enemy forces end up focusing on Hugo. He quickly launches a bunch of smoke grenades that create a thick smoke screen, which gives Rei cover to hide and rush inside the dungeon. He descends through the staircase and is horrified to see the corpses of the dead boys and girls that were probably used as human sacrifices. Nemesis tells him to get rid of all of them, but Rei hesitates before finally gritting his teeth and using his fiery bracer to let out a huge flame which burns them to ashes. He then moves to the next area and is horrified to see a bunch of diseased and near-dead boys. He decides to explore further and walks over to another room, where he notices that a boy is laying down inside of the circle, barely alive. He runs up to the boy and picks him up, but before he could do anything, he gets poked in the chest by the boy and lays down bleeding on the floor. Meanwhile, Hugo defeats the bitches on ground when he senses a strong enemy and shoots a blast towards it. A huge half-man, half-bull looking fucker walks out of the gate with barely a scratch and introduces himself as the second leader of the group. He then makes fun of Hugo for being a brainless vegan before rushing towards him at full speed. Hugo immediately tries to stab him, but his knife breaks immediately, leaving him open to the bull's attack, which knocks him to the ground. He gets up once again and realizes that there is a massive strength difference between them, but manages to get up and ends up using the ace up his sleeve. He merges with Psycho and becomes all shiny and pretty before opening the anywhere door to Antarctica, as the cold winds freeze the bull to death. Back in the dungeons, it turns out that a lick had possessed the boy, and after stabbing Rei, he got out of the boy's body and started celebrating his victory against Rei before deciding to delete the boy as well. But his arm is cut off before he can even touch him. Rei rises from the ground and vows to kill the lick, but the lick uses his special ability on Rei to make him weak, but it doesn't work. He uses his magic to create undead that attack Rei, but he is able to kill them easily, which terrifies the lick, and he runs outside like a bitch to seek protection from the bull man, not knowing that Hugo killed him. Rei follows him out, leaving him no route for escape. The lick finally decides to face off against Rei, and uses a special crystal to create a very strong magical blast aimed at Rei, but he simply blocks the attack completely. The lick falls to its knees and starts begging like a pathetic loser to spare his life. But Rei doesn't hear a single word and punches his head off his body, killing him instantly. He and Hugo go inside the dungeons to take out all the people safely, but once they come out, they spot a huge monster where the lick was. Rei notices one of the kids from the carriages walking towards them, and as the demon tries to attack him, Rei quickly intervenes and uses his bracers to throw flames at the demon's hand, stopping him before attacking its legs and knocking him to the ground. He tells Hugo to take the kids and run away on the carriage while he distracts the demon, and Hugo complies. He notices that the demon has already regenerated its body and realizes that he will have to end the fight with one decisive attack. He engages the demon again and tries to chip it down without taking any damage, but suddenly the demon decides to follow Hugo and the kids instead, forcing Rei to give chase. He throws his spear at it, which cuts its legs, and the demon falls down. He tries to slice through the demon, but the demon flings him away before using a magical blast at him. Rei once again blocks the damage, but is punched away by the demon. He lays unconscious and on the brink of death as Nemesis tries to feed him potions, but they are of no use. She decides to defend him with all she has got, and after a while Rei wakes up as Nemesis transforms back into his big black spear, and he runs towards the demon, attacking it and letting out some gas to slow it down. He runs up on the demon and dodges his magic blast before jumping in the air and using his ultimate attack, destroying the core and killing the demon. He gets a lot of XP from killing the demon, and he rides back to the town to get some well-deserved sleep. The next day, Rei goes to a cafe with Nemesis to have breakfast and meets Marie there, who gives him a ticket to view the upcoming tournament from the front box. Rei thanks her and gets up to leave and goes to the guild house to claim his money, where he meets Hugo. They split the money, and he goes to meet Shuu in the streets where my ex-girlfriend belongs. They go into a room, where Shuu tells him that he is coming to watch the tournament where they will be sitting together. Later that day he goes over to the Coliseum hoping to see the battle between Elon Musk and Bill Gates, but is disappointed to see two girls having a catfight. The flying chick fires a magical blast at the Viking girl, but the Viking easily blocks the attack before the crow woman comes in for a sword slash, which is again blocked. The Viking then uses Rasengan to blast the crow woman away, who gets angry and uses her ultimate big black wind attack. Even though the Viking tries to use her vomit as a valid defense, she ends up losing, and the crow woman is declared the winner. Just as the match ends, he suddenly notices Shuu walking below, so he runs towards him and finds him talking to a guy in a lion costume, who turns out to be Figaro, who is also a degenerate furry. Shuu and Figaro apparently started playing the game at the same time and are very good furry friends. He gives Rei a special ring that will allow him to talk to them telepathically, and Rei leaves them to go back to his seat. In the hallway, Rei tries to gamble on the next girl, but his ass is knocked down by Nemesis. But this degenerate ends up enjoying the humiliation. Later, he notices a Chinese person passing by with a girl in his arms. Rei draws his sword as he thinks that this person has captured the girl. He was about to attack but stopped when Shuu intervenes. The big clawed Chinese, however, is a massive cunt and attacks Shuu for no reason. Thankfully, Shuu has balls of steel and defends himself easily. The attacker introduces himself as Zunyu and laughs at Rei when he realizes that he thought the girl was captured. He tells Rei that the girl is his underling and is currently asleep, and then moves away. Shuu tells Rei that the main fight of the tournament is going to be Figaro against Zunyu, as he is one of the strongest superiors in the neighboring kingdom. They find their booths, and the fight begins. Both Figaro and Zunyu seem to be evenly matched in terms of speed and strength, but Shuu notices that Figaro has been on the defensive for a long time. Suddenly, Zunyu uses a magic explosion, which Figaro defends against using his defensive skill, which he can only use once. Even though he defended against it, it is revealed that Zunyu was able to take his lungs out of his body. Zunyu remarks that he was going for Figaro's heart but got the lungs instead. Figaro seems to be injured, but he starts stripping away his gear, and suddenly, his strength and speed start increasing exponentially. Shuu informs us that one of his embryo's abilities is that he gets stronger over time. Figaro takes out his superior sword, and Zunyu does the same. They run towards each other, and their swords clash, as they see that Zunyu's sword seems to have pierced Figaro's chest, while Figaro is only able to damage his arm, but suddenly Figaro starts slashing him up completely, killing and defeating him in the process. Shuu reveals that Figaro's embryonic gemstone is present in the place where his heart is supposed to be. That's why he survived. Suddenly, Figaro stands frozen in the ring, and everyone seems to be surprised. A voice is heard, and people look up to see the weirdo in the penguin costume whom Rei met earlier. He reveals himself to be Dr. Franklin, and everyone seems to know him apart from Rei. Every player in the arena starts attacking him, but none of the attacks get through to him. Suddenly, a bird flies up to him and transforms into a girl whose name is Ellie, and she is the princess of the kingdom. Franklin stands on top of the stadium and laughs at the helpless players, telling them that they can't do anything. Suddenly, one of the hot-headed idiots shoots a magical blast at him. This pisses Franklin off, and he presses a button on his iPhone 14 Max Pro Super Saiyan. A slime-looking blue creature arises from beside that player that engulfs him, and within seconds steam is emitted from the slime, and the player vanishes completely, and the slime disappears. Everyone is shocked at this, but Franklin merely laughs at them like an evil villain, and tells them that anything that touches the slime disappears completely, just like my dad did. One of the players hurls a magic blast at the slime, which destroys the monster. The slime simply regenerates itself, and stands up again as Franklin claims that he has put these creatures in every corner of the stadium. He explains to them that he is going to release thousands of monsters in the kingdom in exactly an hour, and if they want to stop that from ever happening, they will have to either steal his iPhone or kill him. If they are unable to stop him, the monsters will be released and wreak havoc in the kingdom, no matter whether he presses the button or not. He then tells all of the players that the game has begun and disappears from the stadium, leaving everyone shocked. People start panicking immediately, trying to find a way to get out of this problem. Shuu tells Ray that he feels like Franklin is going to play dirty and that plans to release the monsters no matter what. They all rush towards the exit of the stadium, but the players in front realize that there is a barrier that has been set up on the exit and they cannot escape it. Some of them immediately try to start attacking the barrier with magic, but suddenly, a hologram of Franklin appears in front of them and tells them to think carefully before trying to destroy the barrier, as every time they attack the barrier, one monster will be released in the city, and if the barrier is destroyed, every single one of them will be released inside the city. They all let out a frustrated sigh, as there is no way they could destroy the barrier now. Ray walks over to the barrier and tries to touch it, but is surprised to see that his hand goes through it without any trouble. He looks back at Shuu, who also looks confused but realizes that the barrier is put up to prevent strong players from passing through, but pathetic loser bitches like him can pass through the barrier easily. Ray feels sad at the insult but immediately shouts at all the low levels to move forward so that they can fight against Franklin's forces. A bunch of losers come forward including Rook, and they all stand in front of the barrier ready to get out where a bunch of enemy players are standing to stop them. Before Ray leaves, Shuu gives him a special defense item and tells him to be careful. Ray gets ready to launch an assault, but decides to play it cool and strategically attack the enemies. He simply puts only his hand out of the barrier and uses his poison skill on the enemies. This completely shocks them, as they were not expecting a bunch of rookies to have spells like this, and are not prepared with healing potions. They are all having trouble dealing with the poison, while Rook uses his Rhino and the Phoenix to rain hellfire on them. They have no idea how to deal with a beast tamer, and are totally outmatched in terms of preparation and strength. One of the enemies starts charging up for a very powerful fire blast, but Rook simply uses his nullifier magic to cancel out his magic completely, shocking him. Baby uses her charming magic, which turns the enemies against each other, and they start fighting amongst themselves, killing each other. Ray moves forward, killing anyone who comes in his way, but while he was not looking, the punk again was able to charge up his fire blast magic and shoots it at Ray, hitting him. Normally, an attack like that would have killed Ray, but he had the protective brooch, which ended up saving his life. Ray immediately turns around and uses his special attack on the guy, killing him instantly, defeating their first wave of enemies. On the other side of the map, Marie has been running around to try and find Ellie, who she met earlier at a park and made friends with. She spots Franklin carrying her on his giant flying stingray, and using her stealth, she is able to creep up right behind him before shooting him full of bullets. Before he could react, she quickly grabbed Ellie, jumped down to the buildings, and started running at full speed away from Franklin. Ellie seems to be very happy to see Marie again, and she gives her Franklin's iPad. On it, Marie notices that she can see the positions of her allies, as well as all of her enemies. This turns out to be extremely helpful, as she simply dodges every single enemy that might have come in her way after looking at the map, and makes a beeline for the exit. Before she can reach, however, a sudden sound is emitted from the device, and Ellie converts into a bird and flies away back to Franklin. He tells Marie that he always knew she would be a problem, and has specially recruited someone to deal with her. There is a sudden explosion and the entire building collapses. She drops down to see a total weirdo, with a bunch of mechanical animal dolls, playing instruments, while the dolls dance. Marie whips out her gun, and gets ready for an all-out battle against this creep who calls himself the conductor. Marie and the conductor get into a face-off, and the battle begins. Marie tries shooting him, but none of her bullets are able to pass through the sound barrier created by him. The conductor finally decides to go on the offensive and uses 3 separate sound attacks all at once. She runs as fast as possible to dodge the first attack before blocking the other 2 attacks as well. She realizes that if he keeps attacking her like this, she will always be on her defensive and the precious time would be wasted. Suddenly, he stops playing music and to her horror, there is a massive ultrasonic sound. She looks at the conductor, but notices that all of her animals are standing still and not playing anything, confusing her. She looks up where she sees another one of his familiars playing a piano in the air. He tells her that it is time to say goodbye now, and suddenly, all of her familiars start playing music, as he prepares for his final attack. A giant tornado envelops Marie, and when it is all over, there is nothing but a massive crater where she was standing. The conductor thinks that he has defeated Marie, and gets his healing potion out, but to his surprise, Marie attacks him from behind, delivering a lot of slashes to his back. He quickly backs off, and decides to use one final attack on Marie to try and defeat her, but Marie gets out a special bullet from her bag ready to end this man. They both get into one final standoff, and they both use their special attacks at the same time. When the dust clears, Marie is still standing, whereas the conductor is on the floor, taking his last dying breath. Marie walks up to him, and without any thought puts a bullet in his head, getting rid of him once and for all. Ray arrives at the west gate and spots Hugo in his mecha, guarding the gate. Ray was hoping he was wrong in thinking that Hugo was a traitor, but it is true. He asks Hugo about the location of Franklin, and Hugo honestly tells him that he is outside the gates fighting against the royal guards. Surprisingly, Hugo tells him that he is free to pass, as Franklin wants to fight him alone, but Rook will not pass through. Ray agrees and charges towards the gates, but Hugo goes back on his words and tells Ray that they should attack each other at least once. Ray agrees, and both of them charge towards each other in an attack. Ray uses his counter-absorption ability to soak up Hugo's attack, then releases his special attack, damaging him, and moves through the gate. He spots that Franklin has summoned a giant monster, and all but 2 of the royal guards are remaining, including Lily. He burns the monster with his bracers and gets ready to face off against Franklin. On the other side of the gate, Rook uses his fat 3-horned rhino to attack Hugo, but the traitor is able to absorb the damage. Rook tells Mommy Milkers to use her fireball at Hugo, but he is able to fire a shot at her as well, nullifying her attack. This leads to his gun being damaged, so he throws it away and lunges towards Rook with a sword slash, which Rook is easily able to predict and dodges back. After that, Rook tells his Type 2 Diabetes Rhino to attack Hugo again, but realizes that he is being frozen alive because of Hugo's abilities. The mecha moves towards Rook again with a massive slash, but he dodges the attack before dodging the other 2 attacks that Hugo follows up with. Baby and the Rhino both attack Hugo and keep him at bay, while he tries to figure a way out of this icy prison. Hugo notices that Baby is just creating a distraction to save Rook, so he decides to charge straight at Rook himself, with the intention of ending this battle with one decisive blow. Rook takes the attack head-on and is thrown away into a wall, but to Hugo's surprise, he gets up once again and starts spouting some self-righteous bullshit, which admittedly makes Hugo angry, so he attacks him full force. But to his surprise, when the dust settles, he sees that his attack was blocked by an MO demon-looking entity. It turns out to be Rook in his MO form, as he pushes Hugo back and kicks him away, before shooting a magic flare blast at his chest. Before Hugo could even recover, Rook pushes on with a massive attack, which start breaking Hugo's mecha, and he decides to go on the defensive and dodges the next attack, before using a smoke screen to hide himself. He then emerges from inside the smoke and rushes towards Rook, trying to catch him off guard, but Rook dodges it, and goes on the offensive once again, striking blow after blow, while all Hugo could do is to helplessly try to defend himself and block the attacks. Rook keeps pushing him back and starts trash-talking him, which enrages Hugo, and he tries to hit him, only to get styled on, as Rook dodges all the attacks and then kicks him back. Hugo decides to have one final full-force attack against the new and improved MO Rook, and they both charge at each other with extraordinary speed and clash in the middle. But unfortunately, Hugo gets the better of Rook, as he is able to defeat him, while his thick armor protects him from Rook's sword. Thankfully, however, their attack was strong enough that Hugo's mecha falls apart, and reveals him. After that, Baby immediately uses her charm spell on him, getting him under control. On the other side of the gate, Franklin is being a little bitch and taunting Ray and the other players by showing them the remote that could stop the release of all the monsters, and then he drops the remote near a huge blob-looking monster who gulps it down. After that, the monster seems to get an energy boost as its eyes start shining, and they shoot energy blasts at any and everyone standing nearby. Watching this, everyone starts running and Ray gets hit by an energy blast before he starts running in circles around the monster, dodging his attacks and thinking of ways to overcome this issue. He attacks the monster, which has no effect on him, so he backs off while blocking any attacks coming his way. After the first failed attempt, he decides to strike him once again, but even this time a magical shield around him blocks the attack and he is pushed back. After that, Franklin starts shit-talking him, which makes Ray angry, and he charges straight at the monster, dodging its attacks. Unfortunately, however, he gets hit by one of the attacks and almost loses his life, but the Thought comes to the rescue once again and heals him, while the commander blocks the attacks coming his way, and they all escape. Ray comes up with a plan and tells the commander and the Thought to prevent the monster from escaping, while he will charge up as much energy as he can and blast it at the monster at once. The others agree with the plan and surround the monster, while Ray starts charging a blast. A giant black hole surrounds Ray as immense amounts of energy start getting collected around him, which even scares the monster, who starts running away. Thankfully, however, the commander man uses his magical slashes to prevent him from escaping, and Ray charges at the monster with a huge energy blast, hitting him right on the face and destroying its shield alongside the top half of its body. Even after all this, however, the monster still seems to be alive and starts regenerating, but Ray rushes towards the monster and jumps on top of it before punching one of his hands through the shield and using an insanely strong fire blast, which totally destroys the monster from the inside and leaves Ray in a severely burnt and tattered form. The Thought starts healing Ray back up, as he got completely barbecued like a glizzy in the explosion, but her power is not enough, while Franklin laughs like a dumbass and releases two huge monsters from his ass, which are even stronger than the monster they just fought. The horror doesn't end here, as he tells them about another remote, which he is going to use and release all the monsters in the city. But when he presses the button, he is surprised to see that nothing is happening. It turns out that Marie was able to destroy all of the monster releasing eggs inside of the town, which means that for now the town is safe. Franklin, however, is a massive piece of shit and tells everyone that he is going to release more than 50,000 giant monsters on the city now and completely destroy any life form. He snaps his finger like he's Thanos, and a huge abomination appeared which looked like a dragon, and a spider had a weird-ass mechanical baby. The dragon lowers down its head, and a bunch of deformed monsters start erupting from its mouth and its ass, while Franklin feels proud of his creation. After seeing the insane number of enemies, everyone was diving in despair, but Ray gets back up once again and calls his horse before transforming Nemesis into his sword once again and tells Franklin that he will have a sword in his ass before the day is over. He runs towards the monsters and lets out a post-Taco Bell fart that is so deadly a bunch of them start falling down, while the other get angry at him and start shooting energy blasts. Ray dodges most of them, but ends up getting hit by one of the blasts and falls off his horse. While he was on the ground, one of the Sabertooth tries to jump on him, but ends up getting shot to death by none other than the goat Marie. Another monster tries attacking them, but Ray deals with it very easily, while Marie shoots the other one that jumped on them. Ray and Marie both split up and start absolutely demolishing the monsters, when Rook arrives with a bunch of normies begging Ray to let them join his gang. Ray agrees, and all hell breaks loose as the players in Rook's team start fighting against the horde of monsters together and seem to have the upper hand. Inside of the stadium, while everyone was locked inside, Shuu gets up and decides to show how much of a gigachad he is. As he walks up to the barrier, kills one of the stupid slimes and punches the barrier to destroy it in a single blow, ready to assist the team on the battleground. Franklin gets big mad looking at the players killing his monsters and decides to play dirty by unleashing his shitty Chinese dragon on them. The dragon runs on the battlefield and starts killing any players he can see, and even deletes a bunch of players who were trying to stop it together. Marie shoots at the dragon, but it gets blocked. Marie then gets pissed and gets out a special bullet, but to her surprise, the dragon simply moves past her and goes straight towards Ray. Ray gets ready to face the dragon and gets his sword up, while the dragon opens his mouth wide to swallow him whole. Suddenly, the dragon simply disappears as the jacked version of Winnie the Pooh decapitates him with a single powerful kick. Shuu shouts that he will personally make sure Ray gets to shove his sword in Franklin's juicy ass by the end of this battle, and runs at the monsters. After that, Shuu absolutely decimates the monsters by killing several of them in a single kick and sending a lion on a space mission. It doesn't take him much time to delete any monster that came around him, as he kills even the strongest of the monsters in merely one attack. Franklin looks at him from above, watching him destroy his monsters, and kinda gets a crush on him, but Shuu doesn't swing that way and keeps killing the monsters. He destroys every single monster that was on the field. But Franklin isn't scared as he releases even more monsters. But to his surprise, there are a bunch of explosions on the field, and he notices a giant battleship, which is definite made in America, as it starts obliterating everything on the battlefield. Franklin is heartbroken to see all his monsters getting destroyed by this abomination, and starts accusing Shuu of having aimbot, when suddenly, Ray descends on his ugly war machine. Franklin turns towards him and tells him to go to fuck, but Ray tells him to shut up and return the princess before he shoves his sword somewhere. Franklin tries to trash talk some more, but suddenly his battleship gets attacked by some American power, and in that time, Marie is able to grab the princess and runs away. Franklin's ugly war machine was getting destroyed, and he almost accepted defeat and a sword in his ass, when suddenly Hugo appears with his mecha and gets ready to defend Frank's honor. Ray gets ready to defeat this annoying bitch once and for all, and they both rush towards each other with their swords drawn. Hugo tries to slash at Ray, but his hand explodes, so he uses his other sword hand, which cuts off Ray's farting hand. Ray, however, is not fazed by it and becomes Zorro with a sword in his mouth and uses it to pierce Hugo's chest, killing him immediately. He then runs towards Franklin and punches him straight in the face before barbecuing him on the spot as he falls off from the mecha to his death. Ray also starts falling off, but Nemesis and his horse save him from dying as he lays there completely unconscious. After the battle is over, Lily uses her magic to heal Ray back to consciousness, but she isn't powerful enough to regrow his limbs. He comes to terms with it, and everything ends well with a round of drinks at a nearby tavern. Some days later, after Ray has healed properly, he decides to practice fighting with only one arm and gets ready for a duel against the MVP of the battle, Marie. He gets his sword in his hand and rushes at Marie, only to lose and go back to the real world, where this incel for the very first time sees how the sun and the actual world looks like.
Doesn't